Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Kageyama, and I'd like to welcome everyone here to the Cancer Conquering community. And we are so fortunate to have two amazing guests, which I'll get to in a second. My name is Mark Kageyama, as I mentioned, and I'm a stage 4 prostate bone and lung cancer patient slash survivor. I have had caregivers, which is our subject today, and they played a very important role because without them, I don't know
Mm.
where I'd be. Because as cancer patients, there comes times, many times, that we need help, and we've got to, suck it up and say, "Hey, I need help," and that's what I did, and that's what other people have done, and so we're going to find out about more about that journey. Uh, I am really, really excited because the gentleman to the left on my screen, his name is Zack, and I've actually met Zack in person in Pennsylvania a couple of years ago at Tim Sohn's Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer, and that was, I mean, Zack is an amazing person, and at the he's the type of person the moment you meet him, he's like your best friend. And he's a big guy, but he's a big teddy bear. And so what I want to do right now, and I'm really excited to hear from Selma because I have not met Selma, but together, Zach and Selma wrote a a book, and I'll get it here in a second. But it's about caregiving, which is a very, very critical
Okay.
aspect about many people's health journey that's not addressed enough. And so I'm going to hand it over to you, Zach. Zach Demopoulos, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and let's get into a great conversation here.
Thank you, Mark. And by the way, Selma's hiding her nauseous face very well since you were being way too generous with your comments. She was just getting nauseous over there, weren't you, Selma?
Little bit.
A little bit. Selma and I have known each other for a long, long time. We took a gap in our relationship and then we rekindled it, but we'll talk more about that. But myself, I'm so happy to be here, Mark. As always, I've joined in on your community and just think the world of you as well as your community and what you're doing. I don't have a personal cancer story, but I have been surrounded by many friends and family. And as all of you know, Lee Silverstein was one of my best friends. And we lost him last year, but he is continuously with me every day and motivating me. And he has taught me a lot about being a caregiver, being empathetic and compassionate. But myself, I'm son of Greek immigrant parents that came over in the 50s. So we dealt with a lot of that. And my father had a restaurant that I grew up in and worked in Charlotte, North Carolina. For many years, I learned almost everything from my dad in terms of business and everything about being a caring person and smart person from my mother. Um, I worked for Pfizer Pharmaceuticals for many years in sales, sales management, and mostly HR. And then after that, I ran a home care business with my wife. So we have plenty of lived experiences through professional caregivers. We hired over 700 in 13 years. Knock on wood, never had an issue. Had some amazing people from all parts of this world work with us. And we took care of over 500 families. So a lot of lived experiences there in terms of what families go through, the unpaid caregiver, that side of it. And then I also have a personal caregiver story. I was drafted in 2006. I had the biggest job anybody could dream of, working for the CFO of Pfizer as an HR leader. And then I get a call and I'm drafted into a caregiver role in 3 minutes. My brother calls, says, my father had a stroke. We should have expected it. I mean, he was smoking 2 packs a day. He had hypertension. He was never going to doctors, and he ran a restaurant. I mean, why are we surprised that he had a major stroke, the poor guy? He did survive 6 years with it, but I was a long distance caregiver to help my mom care for him. And I'm currently a caregiver for my mother. In fact, I am literally in Charlotte right now visiting my mother. I try to see her every 2 to 3 months, and I spend 3 to 4 days. I'm in a van. I rip out the front seat, and she rides in the front with me because she can't walk. And we go out and we go paint the town red. So a lot of highs and lows with that, which I'm sure we'll get into. Selma?
Yes, I'm great. Really excited, and it's just great to be here to talk to you guys. Um, I have been a caregiver. I was just writing some numbers down. I think it's as early as 2000. I've been a caregiver, family caregiver for different members of my family. Starting with my mom, who, as she started to get older, started to get
Can we
all kinds.
pause a little bit? How did you two meet? Why
Okay,
don't you start there? Yeah, I
okay.
mean, yeah.
So Zach and I also worked for Pfizer for several years, and we started together at Warner Lambert, and Warner Lambert was acquired by Pfizer, and so we met in the course of our work. I was in legal; I'm a labor and employment attorney, and Zach, as he said, was in HR. So when he got in trouble, I was always there to give him counsel.
Was that a daily event?
Pretty much, pretty much, yeah. He kept me busy. So we met during work, and quite often we would, have conversations. And then for about 8, 9 year period, we didn't run into each other. And we found out later that it was because we both had stepped away to care for our ailing, aging parents. Um,
Wow.
so it was about 8 or 9 year gap that we kind of separated. And one day I was browsing the internet and I saw his profile on LinkedIn, and I decided to give him a call, reach out and see how he was doing. And he responded. We ended up having a 2 hour conversation, mostly about our care experiences, which led us to writing this book. So I'll talk a little bit more about that, but just in terms of my caregiver journey, yes, that book right there. In terms of my caregiver journey, as I said, I started out with my mom, and that journey lasted for about 10 years as she got so many different diagnoses: diabetes, Parkinson's, dementia, congestive heart failure. It's like one thing triggered the other. So over a course of a number of years, and I was a long distance caregiver, so I was back and forth from one coast to the other, or she lived actually in Tennessee, and I was trying to do my business travel as well as going back and taking part in her care. So it was really a feat, a very difficult time in my life for several years. She did pass away in 2017, and since then I've been involved in caregiving for two sisters, both of who were diagnosed with breast cancer, a sister who was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and my older brother who is still battling the, not colon, something similar to that. But he's still battling that. He's back and forth, and it's affected his kidneys, and he's on dialysis, and so it's just constant. So I think my journey has been very lengthy journey, but I would not trade it because it actually brought our family closer together. Uh, it's been a great opportunity to get to know my siblings in a way that I probably would not have taken the time to know them, on the course of my career and being busy and going home for the holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, and basically that was about it. But now we all stay in touch basically on a daily basis, or if not every day, every other day, we stay close. So I am happy about that.
You,
In
you
terms of the
know,
book, okay,
let me pause you right there.
sure.
I experienced something similar when my daughter caregave for me for 3 months. And that gives you, and it really resonates with me what you said, that you had a chance to get to know them. And I was the same because I had the opportunity to get to know my now 40-year-old daughter, Lisa, as an adult, which was just one of the greatest experiences of my life, aside from, the cancer and everything like that. I mean, that part was absolutely amazing. So I completely resonate with you and we don't, we're so busy as human beings, living our lives and everything like that. The people that are really important to us sometimes get put to the side, and to have that opportunity to get to know them, really get to know them and spend a lot of time with them is priceless, absolutely priceless. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but go
No,
ahead,
that's all
Selma.
right. I was just going to share the reason we wrote the book, Zach and I, as we were chatting that day on the phone. I was actually just finishing up a 2-hour run. I think Zach was in a parking lot in New Jersey somewhere, sitting in a car, and we were just captivated by the experiences that we shared with each other about the journey of our care. And so we decided that we would do something to contribute to others in terms of supporting them through their journey, that maybe our experiences could lend some help to someone else going through similar circumstances. And when we started we landed on doing a book. We started our research. We initially said we're going to write about caregiving. We're going to write to caregivers about caregiving, or to potential caregivers. And as we were doing the research, we realized that book had already been written. It had been written many times. So there was no need to duplicate that. Why don't we focus more so on the employer? Because that is where the gap was, that we couldn't find anything out there that helped employers to understand what their working caregivers were going through as they're trying to balance their life, their personal lives, as well as their career. So that's what our focus became. And that's why the book was written the way that it is. We used two fictitious characters, Carrie and Mel, to tell the stories of Zack and myself, some of the experiences that we went through in our journey. And we use those stories through those fictitious characters to express some of the key learnings that we came away with, as well as some of the frustrations that we were experiencing during the particular situations and circumstances, and also to convey some key messages regarding, getting support and coming forward. Because if no one knows you're struggling and you need help, you're probably not going to get it. And that was something that, as I look back, I didn't do. I did not come forward to my employer and say, this is my life right now. Can you find a way to help me do both of these things and do them well? So I didn't give them that opportunity. So I can't really blame them for not being there to support me.
So Selma and I first wrote the book, and then we decided again we want to do more work in this space. And I did a lot of research. I've spoken to a lot of caregiver advocates. There are some good people out there. I call it the Army, the Caregiver Advocate Army. And every situation is different. Every situation is unique, though there's some commonalities that you can always give guidance on a caregiver journey. Every individual family member is unique. And so, after speaking to all these caregiver advocates, Selma and I reconvened and we said, you know what? Instead of being caregiver coaches, I think what we want to do is be employer coaches, because there's always a story from every caregiver we talk to where they either had to leave their job, or they had to cut back their hours, or they got into trouble because they, like Selma said, we didn't share that we're caregivers. We didn't identify, first of all, as caregivers, which is an issue in itself. And then we didn't have conversations. When I jumped on a plane after my brother called me in 2006, I didn't tell anybody anything. I just said, I've got to go. And luckily, my manager was somewhat supportive. I hate to tell you what he told me the second time I had to go. He said, "Can't your wife go?" So he said, "Can't your wife go do this?" And I'm like, wow. I didn't even have time to react to that. I just had to get going because I went to Charlotte from New York 6 times in 6 months after my dad had a stroke to try to care for him and help my mother care for him. So Selma and I decided that we want to do some work with employers. I always say this, and Selma gets on my case, but we're not getting any younger. And Selma and I want to make an impact. And so we first wrote the book. Then we created a website with information, which we're about to update because we'll tell you about a new report that just came out. We're just not prepared to go into detail about it because it literally just came out today, which is amazing. We've been waiting for this report for 5 years. It comes out every 5 years, and it's a
Wow.
collaboration between the National Alliance for Caregiving as well as ARP. And National Alliance for Caregiving is a huge advocate organization that Selma and I were lucky enough to join their Caregiver Nation Summit last year at DC. So the first day was a summit where we got to hear from some amazing people. And the second day we went to the Hill and went to each of our state legislators to advocate for more support for caregivers. Incredible experience. So then we came out with a podcast, and then we came out with a newsletter. Our podcast has really taken off. We've done 21 episodes, and we've got some amazing guests to talk about how employers can support working caregivers, or if you are a working caregiver, what you could do about it. And one in particular I want to share with this community is Charlotte Bayala. She was on recently, and she does the Cancer Caregiver podcast.
Huh.
She is amazing, amazing. She was nominated for a Global Woman Podcaster Award. She didn't get it, but she was nominated top 10 in making a difference. And I want to bring your attention to it. And I can send this information to Mark. And Mark, if you want to share it with the team, but the
Yeah, I
community,
love that. What was her name again, Zach?
Charlotte Bayala. Yeah. And you'll find her if you go to our website under podcasts. She's like the second one recently that we did. Um,
Okay.
but
What
in
is,
particular,
can you give us the name of your podcast?
ours is the same as the book title,
Oh, okay. Working
Working Caregiver,
Caregivers.
the Invisible
Okay.
Podcast. Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
But in particular, I want to bring attention to Charlotte because I think this is a value to us, all of us, as caregivers, as well as family members who may be impacted with cancer, as well as individuals who are dealing with cancer. Her recent podcast series, she's done 5 of them, only 2 so far, 3 more coming, but she's doing it from a first person perspective. And the first one was things I want to tell the person I care for, but maybe you're just not comfortable doing it, right? And then the second one I just listened to this morning is things I want to tell my friends. For example, we just had Selma and I just interviewed um, a woman from the Confessions of the Reluctant Caregiver podcast, Natalie Jennings, and she shared some really open stuff. She's caring for her husband, Jason, who is cancer free for 3 years now. And by the way, Georges, congratulations to you so far, and Bill, you too, for your journeys. Um, just so good to hear that good news, really. But he's cancer free for 3 years, but she talked about the journey, and she'll say things like cancer was a mistress between us. We thought we left Sloan Catering and we thought we left it there, but no, she's sitting between us on the couch. I mean, that stuff is very compelling. I never thought myself as a wife anymore. I lost that role, yet I had 42 other different roles. So anyway, Selma and I are working on approaching companies to do a better job in supporting caregivers. Um, I think Selma wants to tell her expertise is self-care and endurance. Maybe Selma, you want to share a little bit about what you're seeing, what you're learning about it?
Yeah. Well, in terms of self-care, we talk to our podcast guests all the time about, the importance of putting on that mask first. And of course, we get the response, that's easier said than done, which I've walked in those shoes, and that is very true. It's so much easier to say that than it is to make it happen. Because it seems as when you're a caregiver, every minute of your time is dedicated to that person that you're caring for. So what I did when I was caring for my mom, for example, I made sure to get my thing that makes me feel connected with myself, with my brain, with the earth is running. Running or biking or walking, I've got to be moving outside. I got to be doing something outside. And so I did that first thing. Once I got up in the morning, I took that hour, hour and a half, whatever time it was. I took that time first and I let my mom know and let my family know I got to do this. This is what I got to do first. And then I can help you all day long. So, and that's what I did. And people tended to turn around and respect that. They were like, oh, don't try to give mom a bath now. She wants Selma to do it, but we got to wait till she gets her running. They all knew that that's what I needed to build up that energy and the stamina and get it done. So one of the things I think that people can do better in terms of self-care is communicating their needs. They need to let the people that they're helping and supporting know this is how I'm going to be strong for you. So you got to let me do this. And that's just what it was for me. Some people say, I can read a chapter in a book. If I can sit down and have 5 minutes of being able to read something or listen to some music, listen to my opera, whatever it is, they need that. And that gives them that second wind. So I think it's important for both the individual that's doing the caring as well as the care recipient to keep those lines of communication open. Of course, if someone has a doctor's appointment at a certain time, you make allowances for that, or whatever is happening in cases of emergency. I'm not going to stop and say, oh well, I can't take you to the doctor right now, mom. I got to take my run. But in terms of being reasonable, because caregiving is 24/7. It really is, and we have a chapter in the book that you don't clock out of caregiving, like you do with the job at the end of the day. You don't punch in the time clock and walk away. It goes with you everywhere you go. It's even with you at work. You're worried and concerned about that individual. Do they have what they need? Are they okay? And that's one of the biggest challenges to overcome as well is the mental challenge of trying to stay calm and focused in your own work and everything while you're caring for someone else. When we talk about, a lot of times we hear people talk about self-care. We're not talking necessarily about going to the spa, going on vacation and all that. It can be something very simple, something little that just helps you, give you that second wind. Of course, there's opportunities for respite care. We did that as well, where my mom was able to go to a facility for 7 days, which gave my family time to step back and breathe. But guess what? I didn't get that time because she took me with her. I would go to the respite with her and stay with her at the respite. But I enjoyed it. We made it like a spa time. And we were there, we were getting our nails done, we were having massages, we were doing whatever she wanted to do. But I think it's important that we have to stay as caregivers focused on our own health. In terms of some of the stats, just so you know, it's really important to stay on your own health. The research shows that people who caregive compared to employees who do not are more likely to have chronic illnesses. They're more likely to have more than one chronic illness at a time, congestive heart failure, stroke, things like that at the same time. And they're more likely to have their life shortened because of the stress and not being able to get to the healthcare for themselves. So it's really important.
Yeah, and
I have a question
Yep.
for both of you, and both of you, and I've always wondered about this. Many patients tend to be very negative. As a caregiver, how do you deal with that?
Yeah. Well, it is true, especially depending on the illnesses. that they're suffering, most times, a lot of times, they're in pain. They're not feeling well. And so they tend to lash out at that person that's taking care of them. In terms of my experience with my mom, for example, the dementia also resulted in changing her personality. Sometimes she was very mean and not very friendly or kind. And I would just sometimes stop and step back and I'd say to her in kind of a firm voice, Mom, I'm here to help you. You're fighting me and I'm here to help you. So just calm down, relax, and we're going to get done what you need done. I just, a real calm voice and say, I'm really here to help you. And that would usually do it. And she would calm down and she actually most times would apologize and say, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to do that. But there are some instances when I think you're just automatically going to react before you catch yourself. And that happened a couple of times as well when she was being really mean. And I was like, I don't have to be here. I can get on a plane and go home. And then that would get her too. And she would be like, okay, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. But what I really tried to do is get into her feelings, try to put myself in her place, be empathetic and say, she's not feeling well. She probably wakes up every day not feeling well. And I need to consider that and see how I would react to people around me. So that's one of the first steps, I think, is try to have empathy and try to sympathize and empathize with that individual as to how they're feeling and what they're going through.
Would
Mark,
you
great.
also, oh, sorry, Zach. Would you also say that you as a caregiver controlling the narrative is important as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. Definitely. You have a lot of control over the narrative, especially depending on the health of the individual. A lot of times, at some points, I had total control over the narrative because my mom just wasn't capable of doing any decision making or anything like that. So, and one of the things I think is important, and Zach and I have talked about this on our podcast as well, is to, before that individual gets to a point where they can't contribute to decision making, have conversations, have that communication with them, and get the information from them as to what they want, how they want things to progress. They know that things are going to change, things are going to get worse. Get from them what they want, how they want the end to look for them. For example, what do they want to go into hospice, or do they want to go home? And my mom, she wanted to stay home. So we used both, actually. We were able to use the hospice as respite care, and she was able to stay home. So, but we would not have known that had we not had that conversation ahead of time. So that's really important.
Yeah, Mark, your question was a great one. And just again, we refer you to our recent podcast we just had with Dr. Joan Monin from the Yale School of Public Health, who has done studies on the impact of relationships when you're able to do some type of intervention so that you can manage through the negativity, the toxicity, especially with family members who are dealing with cognitive impairment. And so she's done some great work. She calls it, oh, help me out, Selma. WOOP stands for
Yeah,
WOOP.
yeah,
I'll have to refer you to it, or I could send you her study. But it really focuses on looking for the opportunity to try to offset the negativity instead of incite it, right? Or
yeah,
throw gas on it rather, right? So kind of like things like meet people where they are. For example, my mother is completely lucid at 95 years old, but she suffers from a little paranoia. And so my brother, who lives in town, will go see her and he'll start arguing with her and tell her this is not true. What you're saying is not true. And he'll try to rationalize with her and gets her in a huge tizzy and they argue and then he leaves. What benefit does that do?
Wow.
Right? And I'm not blaming my brother. He just lacks the knowledge and the skill set. Just like you asked, Mark, I'm sure you asked for a certain reason. We all are going to experience that if we haven't already done so. Um, can we throw it out to other questions? I know we don't have a lot of time left, but are there other
No, no,
questions?
no.
Oh, yeah.
We'll go as long as you want. We have a hard stop at you're on Eastern time, so we have a hard stop at 1:30. Oh, yeah, 1:30. So, you have the floor is yours, so we could, open it up to questions, and because I mean, I know that you know, for instance, George's things are going through his mind. George's is a cancer coach, and so we help cancer patients, but this is an aspect that is not talked about enough. And it's something that, all of a sudden, just like getting a cancer diagnosis, all of a sudden, hey, how do we deal with
Yeah.
the need to get a caregiver? Who's going to be that caregiver? How do we find it? Who's willing to step up? Are they qualified? All these questions involved. Georges, did you have a question?
Yeah, first of all, Zach, you could call me Yorgos. I'm half Greek.
Yorgos.
So
I'm much more comfortable with that than George's.
And something interesting, I just had a session with a fairly new client. He's in his session 4. His parents, and obviously Yaya and Papuli, all Greek. He stopped speaking Greek when both of his Yaya and Papuli passed away. But that's another story. It's interesting that all of a sudden I'm meeting people that are Greek, so I'm half Greek. My parents migrated from Venezuela. My mother's side of the family from Greece, and then from Madrid, my other side of the family, my dad's. But yeah, one thing that is interesting, hey Gary, it's that what you said, Selma, about the statistic about the chances of the caregiver getting ill as well. And I have an interesting story, real quick. This lady just gave it all for her husband with lung cancer, and in the midst of things, with 4 young children. And when Enrique was actually not doing better, she found out that she had breast cancer, yoga, runner. I mean, this lady was so healthy. And it turns out that she passed a month before him, and they left 4 young children. So my wife and everybody was saying, "Hey, George, how you doing? How you doing?" And one day I just had it, and I said, "Hey, why don't you ask Naomi how she's doing?"
Oh,
She's
wow.
dealing with me and 5 kids. We were blessed with 5 kids. And obviously in my book, I dedicated to her because she was still working full time at a hospital. He said she's a ultrasound tech, and I little by little had to transition out of my CTO position. William is in tech. At that time, I was a CTO. I grew up, basically studied software engineering, computer science, but I had to leave the work, transition out, and had a deal to work for 24 months helping the new CTO. And so at one point, she was dealing with 6 people that needed her help, working overtime and praying in the evening. I would fall asleep and wake up suddenly, and she's still praying. So
Wow.
I'm gonna devour your book and send it to her, because it's great. But great stuff. And the thing about letting the employers know, we were lucky because she did that. She was actually heading the department for Baptist Hospital in Miami, so they were very understanding. They knew that maybe sometimes I had 10 surgeries on me, 4 in the brain, so a lot of missing time there, and we were lucky. But as I hear you guys, it's not always the same for everybody, and yeah, that's great what you guys are doing. Really,
Thanks,
kudos to you.
Yorgo. Yorgo,
Yes.
Yorgo. I love that
Ego
name. Yorgo.
Catalaveni a little bit. Napoli
Yeah,
Calab.
yeah, yeah. Well, let's hope. Hopefully, at least you got some Greek in you, so you got some good in you. So I appreciate that. But I just, just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'd love to be Venezuelan in
No,
Madrid. Are
he's
you
not.
kidding? Madrid. I love Madrid, by the way. I love Madrid. Yorgo, I saw that you asked about the title in the chat room, and I've offered this to Mark in the past to your community as a thank you for listening to Selma and I and spending time with us. Happy to mail you a book if you'll just get me your address. We'll mail you one, and then pass it. Pay it forward
Pay
after
it
you read it.
forward.
Give it to somebody that could use it and need it. Okay.
Okay, and I'll do the same. I'll send you mine to
Okay.
both of you. I'll put my
Um,
address in the chat. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah. I just wanted to, I did look real quick at the report. Selma and I, before we got on, we just put our eyes on it. I will share a couple more statistics. We have grown to 63 million caregivers. We were only at 43 in 2015. That's 20 more million people who are caring for, we're talking not just parents, we're talking about adult children. We're talking about, all types of caregiving here.
Is
And the
that in
study
the
found
US
that
only or
this is
worldwide?
the U.S.
Yes.
The
Wow.
U.S. only,
Wow.
63 million. Yeah, that's one out of every four adults.
Wow.
Um, and this is the more stark realization that we need to keep in mind. Though Yorgos, we just talked about the health and the impact as a caregiver, as Selma said, but half of them are suffering financially because of it.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you, I had a nice job at Pfizer, okay, and I had a nice job running my company. But if I tell you the toll it took on me financially to jump on a plane every other month and spend time down here away from driving business from where I was working, staying in hotels, eating crappy food. I mean, that totally was taking a toll on me, without a doubt. I mean, I'm not. I guess I am proud of this, but my mom finally is in a financial position where she wants to help me with my trips, which I've taken
you.
because sooner or later it impacts you financially. I mean,
Mm,
right? And then the
yeah.
other thing I just want to tell you, which is encouraging. Well, no, wait, two more facts. One, 30% of that 63 million are caring for somebody at least 5 or more years.
Yeah.
Wow. That's huge. I mean,
Yeah.
and and then the last one, which is encouraging, is 50% of working caregivers that they researched do have access to paid leave. This is a 56% increase since 2015.
Wow.
Thank goodness, though we have a long way to go on paid leave
Yes.
too. So
Yeah, we suffered financially. Imagine 10 years fighting the disease. On year 8, we were broke, tapping
yeah,
into 401ks, ROIs, kids' college funds, and not needless to say, their yaya passed 3 weeks before I was diagnosed. So they grew up fearing that daddy would go too. So
yeah,
yeah, there's
yeah.
emotional stuff in there too. Yeah,
And I
definitely.
always sing the praises of Lee Silverstein's employer, what they did for him in the last couple of years for he and his wife as a caregiver, he himself, they really chipped in financially and supported him. Otherwise, I don't know how he could have done some of the things that he was able to do. All the trips to New York, all the expenses, so much time away from work. I mean, I sing the praises of his company big time. But what other questions come to mind?
Well, just let me make a comment in terms of the financial impact. We had talked about earlier about some people having to leave their jobs to do their caregiving. They weren't able to continue with the work. And that actually presents an issue in terms of reentry. We've done some research on that, and it's very difficult for individuals that have spent, as Zach said, at least 5 years or more out of the job market because they were taking care of a family member. And to have those um, gaps in your resume, so to speak, how do you overcome that when you're going back into the job market? And what we're advocating, Zach and I are, is that you take those skill sets that you used as a caregiver and put those in your LinkedIn profile and on your resume. And we have to raise awareness of employers as we work with them to appreciate and accept those superhero type skills that individuals are using. They're balancing, all kinds of schedules and medications and time management. They're doing all these things that companies want their employees to be able to do, but when they're written in the form of skill sets for caregiving, they're brushed aside. They're not really given the due diligence and the due attention that they deserve. So that is an impact financially as well. Is re-entering the job market after having taken the time out, to do the caregiving. So we're trying to shift that so that those skills are an asset and not a detriment.
Yeah, I mean, those are tough conversations to have with your parents, or, let's just say parents, for example. What financially, can we plan for the future? And they're very difficult conversations, therefore you don't have them. It's kind of like, and again, I know you guys in this community get it, when some of your best friends stop talking to you because they don't know what to say to you from because of the journey.
Yes.
So it's better to say, I don't know what to say, but I want you to know I'm thinking about you, right? So
Yeah.
same thing with your financial discussions. Mom and Dad, I know you raised me. I know it's none of my business, but let's go through this hypothetically. I'll give my mom, for example. We sold my mother's home, $400,000. We've blown through that already. Blown through it. And luckily, she and my dad had an investment property, and we were able to do some with that. And now she's okay for another 5 years. But I don't know what I would have done. I mean,
Yeah.
can you? I couldn't fathom it because we didn't talk about this. We didn't plan for it. I like to use our 3P methods. And again, I can share this, Mark, with you too. We have a PDF. And I like to just say, when we're having conversations with caregivers, regardless of where you are in your journey, you should always be thinking about the 3Ps. And the analogy I like to use is, anybody gone out of town lately? Took a trip and went out of town? Anybody? Yeah, Yorgos, you did? Me, I did. Let me ask you a question. Did you just jump in a car and go, or did you actually think this through?
In a way, I jumped in. It was my fourth granddaughter in Raleigh, North Carolina, close to where you are. You're in Charlotte right now, you said?
Yes, I'm in Charlotte. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
but
a very pleasant and blessed experience. Yeah.
right,
Actually, to
right, but
get to see them, because when I was going through my craniotomies, by the way, all I was thinking is the things that I had failed to do, and my family. I forgot my career, and none of that was important. It was just seeing my kids grow up, do their first communion, my sister Sophia getting married, and but financially, it was a tsunami. On year 8, we were broke.
yeah, where'd you drive from, Yorgo?
No, I flew. I flew from Las
Where'd
Cruces,
you fly from?
El Paso, Texas, which is
From El Paso,
45 minutes
Texas.
from Las
Right,
Cruces. Yeah.
right. But the point I'm trying to make, and I love you sharing that, by the way, because that is so important about getting to see your family. But my point is, you didn't just jump in a plane blindly. You
Oh
didn't
no.
just drive up to the airport and purchase a ticket
Yeah.
to Raleigh, and then you start thinking about, well, where are we going to stay, and do we have enough money to do? So
Yeah.
many caregivers get hit between the eyeballs, unprepared. They don't know where to turn. They don't know if they have the finances. They're dealing with their own physical issues. And so the 3Ps we like to share is very simple: plan, provisions, and people. And when you're taking a trip, vacation, long weekend, if you think about it, you're doing all three of those things. What's my itinerary? And I need to be back for work, or I need to prepare while I'm traveling. I have appointments. What is my plan? And that goes back to what we were saying about conversations with the parents. What is our long-term plan in case, God forbid, something happens to one of you, right? And then provisions. Do we have enough finances? Do we have the ability to age in place? Or is it unsafe? Do we need to get some modifications done to the home, or do we need to consider moving or downsizing? Um, the actual location versus people who are going to be helping you care. Do we need to move closer? These are all things that we have to think through. And the last thing, of course, the most important is people. Who are going to be the people who are going to be your care team, right? You need to kind of give them a heads up that whatever you're going through as a caregiver or as a care recipient, you know, you're the folks I'm going to lean on. Give them an advance warning. It's very helpful. People can figure out what their roles and responsibilities. I'm one of 3 kids, and we each know what our roles are. But we didn't do that the first time around. When my dad got sick, we made a lot of mistakes. Questions?
Well, thank you, Gary. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I'm
Good,
so
good,
sorry. Hi,
Oh,
Zach. Hi, Selma.
good to see you again, Dr.
Rachel, good to
Gary.
see you again. Selma, nice to meet you. William,
good.
Jordan, Manjiku, Mark. I'm sorry I couldn't attend at the beginning. I wanted to. I will look at the playback. I wanted to just share something and then ask a question regarding caregiving. And what an amazing, just from what I've heard in the last 10 minutes, it sounds like you guys are doing global champion survivorship work, and it's incredible.
Thank
Um,
you.
my mom, so I'm 45 years in healthcare as a retired chiropractic physician, nutritional professor, and hospice leader, and um, have a life-threatening blood disorder that I've survived for 33 years. But my caregiving experience with my mom, who had liver cancer and passed with that throughout my adult life, she pretty much had cancer. But when it came down to her having a 4-month uh, death sentence by the stupid doctor, she lived 2 years after that, and we coordinated, planned, and provisioned, got the right care team together to make sure that she had uh, the passing of her choice. So she, at the time, um, in the last 2 months, she didn't have hospice presented to her, although she wanted to come home. She wanted to pass in peace at home. My father was alive as well, so it was my mom and dad. And basically, because of that experience, not being offered hospice, wanting to come home, she passed in the hospital. So that lit a match under me to go into hospice as an admissions nurse and later in my last employment as a hospice director. So with my father, he had Parkinson's dementia. My mom widowed in 92, and then he had 2 other wives that passed before him, and
Oh my goodness.
he was last living at 90 years of age um, in Nevada in a small retirement home by himself with his dog. But anyway, when he deteriorated in 2010, I was working still, and he had a stroke, and that left him pretty much debilitated, but not. He still had his mind. I basically said, I'm going to drive out there in a van. We're going to put you in a wheelchair. We're going to discharge you from Nevada crappy healthcare, bring him home, got him into assisted living, sold his home, sold his car, got him down to where he would be on in a situation where he could be on Medi-Cal. The assisted living waiver program in California allows assisted living level of care for Medi-Cal patients. So it's pretty incredible. So we got him into assisted living, then in hospice, and he passed in peace in 2015. Now, um, we are having a situation right now where my wife's aunt, uh, they live in East Los Angeles, my aunt and uncle, Ecuadorian, and she collapsed 2 years ago with a stroke, hemiplegic, basically unable to be at home. Uh, the decision that they made was to get on Medi-Cal. She's in a nursing home for that period of time, deteriorating, mentally clear, and they want to bring her home. However, the husband, my uncle, Jackie's uncle, is then they're in their 80s, and she has had multiple, hospitalizations. She's deteriorating. They would like to bring her home, but the only caregiver is the daughter, who's a nurse practitioner, but her own health is deteriorated. She can't lift or bend or twist, and her husband is a doctor with Kaiser. They moved to be close to them in East Los Angeles. However, and we've been dealing with this, uh, you know, Uncle Pepe was driving up until about a month ago, able to go and visit her and stay with her all day long at the nursing home. He himself lost the ability to walk a month ago because of spinal stenosis, and he's now unable to walk and, having to go through medical care and things like that, but unable to go and see her. We've been trying to find caregivers to bring her back home. They've made some improvements and provisions in the home to make a ramp off the master bedroom that they can get out of, wheelchair accessible and handicap bathroom. However, it just hasn't come to fruition because of now him being unable to walk. Trying to find a legal caregiver has been very difficult. Trying to find, they all want benefits, illegal or not. They want benefits. They want 2 weeks off during Christmas. So the situation we're in right now is she's deteriorating. She wants to come home. Those are her wishes. Um, he doesn't want to leverage the equity in the house, which is hundreds of thousands. And we're just having a difficult time getting a caregiver so that she can come home. She would need two $25 an hour caregivers at home, which is, 30 to 50 grand a month. Um, Even though they could do it with a reverse mortgage, or they could do it with an equity line of credit or loan, he's just stubborn. So now we're in this situation of caregiving. They want to bring her home. He can't be the caregiver. Caregivers are difficult to find. I know this is a loaded question, but if you have any resources to find affordable caregiving, we would need two to bring them home, to bring her home, so they can be together at peace and pass in peace, and their days are numbered. Tough question.
Tough, tough share, Dr. Gary. You've been through quite a bit.
Yeah,
Been through quite a bit.
we're trying to be as
Wow,
supportive as we can.
man. So you and I should just talk
That's what I was thinking.
offline, and I can try to get you in touch with one of my former peers who probably has accesses to resources. He used to run a private pay home care agency like I did
Excellent.
in LA. And my thinking is, and I know him, he's very good. We all always had access to resources in our local area. So I think that's at least a first conversation you can have with him.
Yeah.
Um,
But she's
I
going to
do want
die
to
in the
manage
nursing
your,
home.
what's
Sorry.
that?
In the nursing home, I have experience with nursing homes and being licensing and certifying them. They are cesspools for disease. She has had MRSA pneumonias and
Yeah.
UTIs every month for the
Yeah.
last 6 months, in and out of the
Yeah.
hospital. And she's in a room with four people, and they're getting, um, just they're infecting each other repeatedly, and it's just
Yes. Yeah.
now that he can't even
Yeah.
visit, we do need resources. So I would love to do that.
Yeah, yeah. You and I should chat.
Yeah,
We'll chat offline. I'll get you in touch with him. He retired, but I know he has. He at least you should be talking to him. You got to talk to somebody local who knows California, knows the support and resources there. As far as nursing home, I don't know. You weren't on the call earlier, but I'm actually in the parking lot of a nursing home because I'm visiting my mom who's in one. And I will tell you,
you know,
though it's taken quite a bit, I am managing it, and they are taking good care of her. But she does have a private room, and it's costing us a crap load, close to
and
10 grand a month.
of course,
So
that's cheap.
yeah,
Actually, in
yeah,
California, it's 15 to 20 for a very
yeah,
nice assisted
yeah.
living nursing home.
That said, a dear friend of mine and was on Selma and I's podcast not too long ago. She'll be on at the end of the month. She just did a docu-series on nursing homes, and it's an expose, not pretty for nursing homes, what she's going to reveal. So I see both sides of it. totally.
If they want to be
The
at
only other,
home, they
that's
want to
that.
be at home. They want to be at home. They
Yeah, you and I
keep
will talk
getting a
offline.
caregiver.
Just,
Yeah, we'll
yeah.
care.
But I will say something a little tough, Dr. Gary. I will say something a little tough. It just needs to be said. It's just who I am.
Yeah.
But you got to come to a point where I get you're stubborn. I get it. But you've got to make a decision because at the end of the day, it is a financial decision, unfortunately.
You're talking about my uncle,
Medicare,
Jackie's
huh?
uncle. Jackie's uncle has to be that person.
Yeah, they've got to make that decision.
And the
If you
daughter.
want her home, you're gonna have to spend the money to do it. Unfortunately, Medicare does not take care of us at home. In
Nope.
fact, we have a huge argument with Medicare, us advocates. You know why?
Yep.
They'll pay for some of your nursing home, but they won't pay to keep you out of a nursing home. I don't understand that. I
Doesn't
don't
make
under,
sense.
They'll pay for 100 days of nursing home, but yet they won't pay for the help you need at home to stay out of it, which is 1/10 of the cost. I don't get it. It
And
doesn't make
Medi-Cal is
sense.
only in-home support services for housekeeping, maybe 4 hours several times a week, and that's nothing. No
Yeah,
care. So you do
yeah,
have to pay out of
yeah.
pocket. So we're trying to
Yeah. So
overcome
I'll
that.
get you in touch with Joel. He's a great guy, and I won't even pretend to be an expert in California. I will have you speak with him.
I put my email in the chat. God bless you and thank you for that.
Okay. I'm on a phone, so I'll try to. Can I make it? Can I put my email on here, and that
Yeah,
way
yeah,
you
please
can
do.
send me a note? Okay.
Please do.
No,
Okay.
I mean, if you want, Dr. Gary and Zach, I've got both of your contacts, so I can make it happen. So
Okay, Mark will make it happen.
Thank you. Only because
yeah,
I'm on a phone Zoom call. I don't even know how to do any of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
But I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you sharing, Dr. Gary. And just so you know, Selma and I totally want you to know you're not alone. And thank you for the work you're doing in hospice.
Hmm.
Perhaps maybe we'll have you on the show a little bit down the road because we want to talk hospice, the H word. Everyone's afraid of it. And maybe we can get you on our show and you can talk about it.
I have incredible experience personally and professionally, and I led one of the largest teams in Los Angeles, including the unfortunate passing of Betsy Bloomingdale, the Bloomingdale legacy. I managed a team that took care of her. So that's not a fame and fortune kind of thing. That's just, I was in the right place at the right time and had the right resources to do it. So it was a blessing. I would love to share. I have a lot to say, like you and Selma. Bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, guys?
yeah, I have a question. Um, how, what is the best, what are your best recommendations? Okay, a person gets some kind of a health crisis diagnosis, whether it be cancer or heart disease or whatever it may be. It doesn't matter. So they're dealing, you have to deal with that situation, and then all of a sudden they're incapacitated and you need a caregiver. What is your best advice to people in that situation as to the steps that they need to, your best advice for the steps that they should take so that, that they can accommodate for having a caregiver or finding one, or how do you assess that situation? Because I always tell people, for instance, with cancer, we study to become doctors and lawyers and accountants or whatever it may be. We study years and years and years to become whatever it is that we want to become. Yet when cancer hits, nobody's studied for it, nobody's ready for it, and then all of a sudden you're enslaved to whatever your doctor says. Most people, anyway, are enslaved to that diagnosis and the recommendations of the doctor. But attached to that, is a lot of times, particularly when you start going through chemo and radiation and all these therapies and things like that, things of that nature, they're debilitating and they create major health crises, not just for the patient, but for the family. What is your recommendation for how to go about it in the best way?
Well, for me, I think, and what I've seen, most people start with their family and their friends. That's where they start to look for their care team. And I just experienced that with my best friend that I've known since college. And she got a cancer diagnosis, and she called me up to be on her care team. And I'm a distance. I'm from a, coming from a distance, but she had 6 people on her team. I was one of those individuals, and we walked through a schedule of, okay, I'm having the chemo treatments these particular weeks. I'm going to be sick. I'm not going to be able to do this or that. And I'm having radiation at this particular time. We just walked through it practically. And I actually ended up being her chauffeur for a week. I flew into Tennessee, and I was her chauffeur, taking her back and forth to her treatments, taking her to her other doctor appointments and all that. But I think if you start with people you know, your family, your friends, and then from there you can build outside to see what external resources you need, what paid resources you might need. And also one of the things that she mentioned to me was that her medical care team at her hospital was able to give her resources for paid care and where she could go to help, fill in the gaps. But I think people start usually with family and friends. That would be a good start.
Yeah, that's good stuff, Selma. I'll add, and again, I can't sing enough praises for Charlotte Bayala of the Cancer Caregiver podcast. She talks about how when her husband received the sentence, he got all this instruction, right? It was very technical and all this, but yet she got zero instruction about how to do it, how we're going to care for him, how we're going to pay for this, how we're going to do all this, right? Um, so I will argue that most healthcare providers aren't well versed in this area for a number of reasons. I think they're starting to wake up to it in medical schools, where they need to understand that caregivers need to be triaged. I apologize. Patients need to be triaged, just like when you ask them socioeconomic questions before you go to an appointment. You ask things like, have you been abused? Have you ever had struggled paying your bills? You ask all those questions, but you don't ask, are you a caregiver or do you have a caregiver? And do you need any help with that? For a number of reasons, because I think most healthcare providers don't know where to turn. So, Mark, I would say, in addition to what Selma shared, which is really important, your inner circle, your family, social workers are the most underpaid, incredibly valuable people in this society when it comes to caregiving. They're hard workers. They're in every facility. They come with different names, like in a hospital, they're discharge planners. And I always tell anybody who goes into a hospital for anything, already start planning for your transition out and meet with the discharge planner immediately. And I know that sounds weird, because a discharge planner, don't they check us out? No, they actually have valuable resources to help with the transition. A geriatric care manager, or now they call them aging life care specialists, is worth every dime they charge. They're a little pricey. It could be anywhere from $100 to $200 an hour, but they are normally nurses, social workers, and they have deep expertise in the area that you live in to get help and drop those 3 Ps. Those there, most people don't know about them. We wrote a chapter in our book where the character Mel, or not Mel, the senior HR leader, talks about how she was struggling, didn't tell the CEO that she was struggling, and luckily somebody told her about hiring an aging care life specialist. So there are things out there that are both you have to pay for it, or there's a lot of things that you don't have to pay for. Now the county has a lot of programs too, the area aging agency of aging is always a good start as well to go to, and they usually have things whenever you're on a budget that they could try to support you with. But there are actually quite a few people out there. We just don't know where to go and get them. But I would say professionally, social workers in wherever you are, whether it's a cancer center, I can assure you, cancer centers have tremendous social workers. Um, Even hospice. I always tell people, I think Dr. Gary's gone, but he can probably agree to this. I always tell people get on hospice because they have a great social worker that will actually come, that's paid for by Medicare, to walk you through some things to support you and get you some respite.
Would would you recommend uh, any groups, just off the top of your head, that would be a good resource to start with? For instance, would it be something like AARP, or, what kind of organizations could a person reach out to that would be a good start? I mean, we just want to be able to provide, things that, may be of use.
You want, Selma, you want to go ahead? You want me to go ahead?
Go ahead, Zack.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up because there's a lot of people getting into the care economy, so you got to be careful. You got
Mhm.
to make sure that it's not biased. In other words, they're selling you a bill of goods. Now that said, there are a lot of people selling you a bill of goods that are really good. For example, carrying bridge to Selma's point, when you're first looking for help, the best way to try to communicate instead of trying to send all kinds of texts to a ton of people, carrying bridge is a free platform that you can get on and share things that you need, like a ride or a meal. And you can do it in a way so that you're not always put on the spot. What can I do for you? Because most people don't do that. So there are a lot of platforms where you can bring your family and friends in to share some of your needs and do updates. Really important. But as far as online, there's a few great sites, but the Family Caregiver Alliance, FCA, which is based out of San Francisco, they are California focused, but everything they have on their site can be applicable nationally, and they have just a wealth of information and support from all kinds of aspects of the caregiving journey. The Family Caregiver Alliance, FCA, the National Alliance of Caregiving, the one we mentioned earlier, also has a tremendous amount of good resources. The Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregivers, also a very deep resource to go to. They're not selling you something; they're giving you just tremendous amount of information. AARP has also a whole section for caregiver resources as well as for employers on things that they could do as well. And then every major organization like the Cancer Society or Parkinson's or muscular dystrophy all have their own caregiver support services. Now, that's it. I will share a couple more things with you. Caregiver support groups are so valuable, so valuable. And one I'll share with you, which sounds a little weird saying this to a room full of gentlemen, but the Working Daughter private Facebook group is just incredible. There's over 10,000 members, and it's not just for women, it's for anyone who is struggling as a caregiver. And it's a great site to vent. It's confidential, it's a private site, and it's also a great site to ask questions. And you will get people through lived experiences sharing you what they went through. Nobody is selling you anything. Now you got to take some opinions, you got to be smart with it. Some of them are politically fired up. Some of them are very faith driven. So you just have to look at each one. But there are a lot of people in this caregiver group that have experienced almost everything you can think of that have valuable resources at the tip of their tongue.
And just to mention one other, when you're dealing with a veteran, the Veterans Administration actually has a lot of resources, and people tend to forget about them. But if you're dealing with a veteran, that would be a great place to start. They have when I was doing some research for a blog, I ran across a lot of resources and information about the Veterans Administration that I had no idea existed, and most people don't. So that's another one.
No, we appreciate these suggestions. I think we're all having our eyes being open about things that most people just don't even think about. And, we need this information in the community as a whole. So, also, too, feel free to post on our Facebook page, if you want to post your podcast or whatever you want to do. This is a very important aspect about about cancer or any health journey. So thank you for what you do, uh, and your passion with doing it. So we appreciate that. Are there any other questions, input that anybody has? Because what we're going to do, if not, anybody, what we're going to do is we're going to shut off the recording right now and then just briefly chat before we close it out. But we really appreciate uh, Zack and Selma, and it's been such a pleasure. I mean, Zack is Zack is my big buddy, and he's big. He's a big dude, but he is a big teddy bear. And Selma, it's just been an absolute pleasure to meet you. So thank you both for sharing your expertise with us. And with that, just wanted to say thank you to all of everybody who is watching this video for the Cancer Conquering community. And we will see you next week with Dr. Gary Phillips, who is here, and he will be talking about nutrition, and we'll be posting on our Facebook page. Thank you so much, and we will see you next week on the
Thank you.
Cancer Conquering Community.